He had the fame, he had the hits, he had the respect of Nashville. But in the end, Faron Young felt completely erased. This was a man whose voice helped define country music. Yet his final years were filled with silence, isolation, and pain most fans never knew about. And the most heartbreaking part? It didn't happen overnight. It happened slowly, quietly, right in front of everyone. But listen to this. The warning signs were there long before the end, and once you see them, you'll never hear his music the same way again. Faron Young didn't fight his way into country music. He didn't beg for attention. He didn't wait for permission. He arrived like he already belonged there. From the very beginning, his voice stood out. Strong, smooth, confident in a way that made people stop and listen. While other singers struggled to get noticed, Faron made success look natural. Radio stations played his songs on repeat. Crowds packed the honky-tonks. Record labels saw him as a sure thing. And on the surface, his life looked perfect. Fame, money, respect. But listen closely. Perfect lives don't need to try this hard. Behind the applause was constant pressure. Pressure to stay relevant, pressure to evolve, pressure to never fall behind. Country music was changing fast, and Faron felt it breathing down his neck. Every new hit raised the bar higher. Every success came with an unspoken question. How long can you keep this up? He smiled for the cameras. He delivered on stage. But inside, something wasn't settling. Because when your entire identity is built on being on top, there's one fear that never leaves you. The fear of being replaced. And here's the part most fans never realized. The moment Faron reached the peak was the same moment the cracks began to form. But that's not all. Because just as his career exploded, the pressure started changing him in ways no one saw coming, and what happened next would quietly push him down a path that had no easy way back. Then came the song that changed his life forever. Hello, Walls. On the surface, it sounded simple. A lonely man, talking to empty walls, trying not to fall apart. But the moment Faron recorded it, everything shifted. The song exploded. Not just in country music, but beyond it. Radio couldn't stop playing it. Fans who never listened to country before suddenly knew his name. The record sold over 1 million copies. This was huge. Faron Young had crossed a line very few artists ever did, country, into the mainstream. And for a moment, it felt like he had finally won. But listen to this. Success comes with a price most people never talk about. Because while the world celebrated, Faron felt something else growing inside him, expectations. Now, every song had to be bigger. Every hit had to go further. Every move was watched. And the industry started quietly pushing him in a direction he wasn't sure he wanted to go. Smoother, cleaner image. Less honky-tonk grit. Fans loved the polish. Labels loved the money. But Faron? He started to feel trapped. Because when people fall in love with one version of you, they don't want you to change. And the pressure to stay that version began eating away at him. It gets worse. Because the same song that made him a star also created a split between who the audience wanted and who Faron really was. And that tension, it didn't explode right away. It waited. While most fans only saw the singer, Faron Young was quietly becoming something else. An insider. He didn't just record music, he studied the industry, the money, the power. And then he made a move that shocked Nashville. Faron started investing in Music Row before it became legendary. He bought property, built offices, put his name behind publishing companies. This wasn't normal for artists back then, but listen to this. Faron didn't want to just be part of the industry. He wanted control. He co-founded Music City News, helped create fan-voted country awards, shaped how artists were recognized. On paper, this was genius. He had influence, status, a seat at the table most singers never touched. But here's the twist. The more power he gained behind the scenes, the more disconnected he felt on stage. Country music was changing again. New sounds, new faces, new rules. And slowly, quietly, Faron realized something terrifying. The industry he helped build didn't need him the way it once did. That feeling hit harder than any bad review, harder than any chart drop. Because when your identity is built on relevance, being ignored feels like disappearing. And that fear, it started following him everywhere. But that's not all. Because as his influence grew, so did the habits he used to cope with the pressure. And those habits were about to drag his life into a much darker place. By the 1970s, something was off. Faron Young was still famous, still booked, still respected, but the confidence people saw on stage was starting to feel forced. Behind the scenes, alcohol became constant, not occasional, not celebratory, constant. It started as a way to relax, to take the edge off, to quiet the noise. But listen to this. Alcohol doesn't fix pressure, it hides it. And the cracks began to show. His behavior became unpredictable. Mood swings, explosive moments. Then came the headlines. Accusations surfaced after an onstage incident. The details spread fast. The damage spread faster. Even though it didn't end his career, it changed how people looked at him. Promoters hesitated. Labels distanced themselves. Whispers followed him everywhere. Faron felt judged, watched, misunderstood. And that feeling fed the cycle. The more pressure he felt, the more he drank. The more he drank, the more control he lost. It gets worse. Because the industry that once protected him started stepping back. Country music was moving forward, and Faron was being quietly left behind. And for a man whose identity was built on being needed, that realization was devastating. But listen carefully. This wasn't rock bottom yet, because what happened next would destroy the one place he still felt safe. By the 1980s, the noise was gone. No more packed headlines. No more nonstop attention. No more industry chasing him. And for Faron Young, that silence was unbearable. Country music had changed again. New stars, new sounds, new faces everywhere. But Faron didn't feel like part of it anymore. Labels lost interest. Radio moved on. The phone stopped ringing. And listen closely. This is where the real pain began. Because failure wasn't what hurt him. Being ignored did. For decades, his entire life revolved around being needed, being wanted, being relevant. Now, he felt invisible. He still recorded music, still performed when he could. But it felt different. Like he was singing to memories instead of an audience. At home, things weren't better. The drinking worsened. The moods darkened. Tension filled every room. Then came a moment that terrified everyone around him. Under the influence, a firearm was discharged inside his home. No one was hurt. But the message was clear. This was not okay. It forced the people closest to him to confront something they had tried to ignore. Faron refused help, refused to slow down, refused to admit how bad it had become. And that refusal cost him the one thing he still had. His family began to pull away. His marriage collapsed. His home disappeared. And the loneliness closed in fast. But it gets even darker. Because once the family was gone, and the industry was gone, Faron was left alone with thoughts he couldn't escape. By the mid-1990s, Faron Young was exhausted. Not physically, emotionally. The fame was gone. The marriage was gone. The sense of purpose. Gone. He still had memories. But memories don't answer back. Friends noticed he was quieter, more distant, like a man already halfway gone. And here's the part that hurts the most. No one expects the end when someone has survived so much. But inside, Faron felt abandoned. By the industry he helped build, by the spotlight that once defined him, by a world that moved on without looking back. The loneliness became unbearable. On December 9th, 1996, Faron Young made a decision he couldn't take back. He offed himself. The man whose voice once filled arenas was suddenly gone. The news hit Nashville hard. Fans were stunned. Artists were silent because no one wanted to admit the truth. A legend didn't fade away. He broke. Quietly. The next day, he passed away in a hospital room. Not on stage, not in front of cameras, but alone. Later, his ashes were spread over Old Hickory Lake, a peaceful place, a final goodbye. And as the ripples disappeared into the water, one question remained. How does someone who shaped country music end up feeling like he no longer mattered? That question is what makes this story so heartbreaking. Faron Young wasn't forgotten because he failed. He was forgotten because the world moved faster than a human heart can handle. He gave country music his voice, his vision, his life. He helped build the industry, shaped its future, and then watched it continue without him. That's the part that hurts the most. Because his story isn't just about fame fading. It's about what happens when success becomes your identity, and one day, it's gone. Behind the hits and headlines was a man who needed meaning more than applause, and when the noise stopped, the silence became too loud to survive. So the next time you hear his music, listen closely. not just to the melody, but to the emotion behind it. Because legends don't disappear, they leave pieces of themselves behind. If this story moved you, leave a comment below and share your thoughts. And if you want more untold stories like this, subscribe, so these voices are never forgotten again.